It was the autumn of 1975, in a quiet little town called Willow Creek, somewhere in the American Midwest. The town was small, peaceful, and surrounded by endless cornfields that turned golden every fall. Most people knew each other by name, and life moved at a slow, comfortable pace. 17-year-old Michael Carter lived with his widowed grandfather, Henry, in an old wooden farmhouse just outside town. Henry had worked on the railroad for over 40 years before retiring. Every evening, he would sit on the front porch with a cup of coffee, watching the old railway tracks disappear into the horizon. One chilly afternoon, while cleaning the attic, Michael found a dusty leather suitcase. Inside were faded photographs, a silver pocket watch, and dozens of unopened letters tied together with a blue ribbon. Curious, Michael asked his grandfather about them. Henry looked at the letters for a long moment before speaking. "They were written by my best friend, Thomas," he said quietly. "He left Willow Creek for California in 1952. We promised to stay in touch, but after your grandmother became ill, I never opened his letters." Michael was surprised. "You never read them?" Henry slowly shook his head. "I was afraid they would remind me of everything I had lost." That night, Michael carefully opened the first letter. Thomas wrote about his new life in California, working at a small auto repair shop, making new friends, and dreaming of opening his own business. Each letter ended the same way. "No matter how far I go, Willow Creek will always be home." Over the next several evenings, Michael and Henry read every letter together. Some were funny, some were hopeful, some spoke about difficult times. The last letter, written in 1970, was different. "Henry, I'm getting older now. If you ever read these letters, please come visit me. Life is too short for old regrets." Silence filled the room. Henry's hands trembled as he folded the paper. "I waited too long," he whispered. The next morning, Michael surprised his grandfather with 2 train tickets to California. Henry smiled for the first time in years. The journey took nearly 3 days. As the train crossed mountains, rivers, and endless plains, Henry shared stories Michael had never heard before. Stories about growing up during hard times, fishing in the nearby river, and working on steam locomotives with Thomas. When they finally reached the small California town where Thomas had lived, they discovered that the old repair shop was still there. An elderly mechanic greeted them. "Can I help you?" Henry showed him an old photograph. "I'm looking for Thomas Walker." The mechanic looked at the picture and smiled sadly. "You must be Henry." Henry nodded. "I'm afraid Thomas passed away 2 years ago." For a moment, neither Henry nor Michael spoke. Then the mechanic disappeared into the office and returned with a small wooden box. "Thomas left this for you. He said if you ever came looking for him, I should give it to you." Inside the box was the same model of silver pocket watch Henry had once given Thomas as a birthday gift, nearly 50 years earlier. There was also one final handwritten note. "Dear Henry, friendship isn't measured by distance or time. It's measured by the memories we keep alive. Thank you for being my brother in all but blood. Don't be sad that we couldn't meet again. Be happy that we shared a lifetime of memories. Your friend, Thomas." Henry quietly wiped away a tear. On the train ride home, he looked out the window as the American countryside rolled by. "I spent years thinking I had missed my chance," he said. Michael smiled. "But you found what really mattered." Henry nodded. "Not the goodbye, but the friendship." Back in Willow Creek, Henry placed Thomas's letters and the silver watch inside a glass case in the living room. Whenever visitors asked about them, he proudly told the story of 2 friends whose bond survived decades, distance, and silence. Years later, after Henry passed away peacefully, Michael inherited the farmhouse. He never sold the letters. Instead, he shared the story with his own children, teaching them that true friendship should never be taken for granted, and that it is never too late to remember the people who helped shape our lives. And every autumn, when the old train passed through Willow Creek with its lonely whistle echoing across the fields. Michael would smile, tip his hat toward the tracks, and think of two lifelong friends whose memories would travel together forever. Nearly 5 years passed after Henry Carter's peaceful death. The old farmhouse at the edge of Willow Creek had become quieter than ever, but Michael kept everything exactly as his grandfather had left it. The glass case holding Thomas's letters and silver pocket watch stood proudly in the living room, becoming the heart of every family gathering. One crisp autumn afternoon in 1985, Michael's 12-year-old son, Daniel, wandered into the attic while searching for an old fishing rod. Hidden beneath a dusty wooden chest, he discovered a small metal box wrapped in an old railroad blanket. "Dad!" Daniel shouted. "I found something!" Michael climbed the attic stairs and carefully opened the box. Inside was an old railroad map, several black and white photographs, and a sealed envelope with faded handwriting. On the front were the words, "For the Carter family, open only when the time feels right." Michael's heart skipped a beat. The handwriting looked familiar. It belonged to Thomas Walker. With trembling hands, he slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a letter dated 1971, written 1 year after Thomas's final letter to Henry. It read, "Dear Henry, if you are reading this, then perhaps life has finally brought us together in one way or another. I know you always loved the old railway, so I left behind something special. Many years ago, while repairing an abandoned train station outside Willow Creek, we buried a small time capsule beneath the large oak tree beside the tracks. Inside are memories from our youth, photographs, newspaper clippings, and a promise we once made as boys. If someone from your family ever finds this letter, I hope they'll uncover it. Some treasures are worth waiting for. Your lifelong friend, Thomas." For several moments, nobody spoke. The next morning, Michael, Daniel, and a few neighbors walked to the abandoned railway station just outside town. The station had long been forgotten. Rust covered the tracks, and weeds grew between the wooden ties. But beside the platform still stood a giant oak tree, older than anyone could remember. After nearly an hour of digging, Daniel's shovel struck something solid. It was a rusted metal container. Carefully opening it, they found dozens of photographs showing two teenage boys laughing beside steam locomotives, fishing in the river, and celebrating birthdays together. At the very bottom lay a folded piece of paper. It simply said, "True friends never disappear. They simply become part of our stories." Michael smiled through tears. Looking at his son, he quietly said, "Now it's our turn to keep their story alive." As the autumn wind carried the distant whistle of a passing train across the golden fields of Willow Creek, 3 generations became connected, not just by family, but by the timeless friendship of Henry and Thomas. To be continued. The discovery of the time capsule changed Willow Creek forever. News of Henry and Thomas's remarkable friendship spread throughout the small town. The old railway station, once forgotten and covered in weeds, became a place where people came to remember loved ones and celebrate lifelong friendships. Michael carefully restored every photograph and every letter. With the help of Daniel and the townspeople, they created a small exhibition inside the old station called The Last Letters. Visitors of all ages came to read the story of 2 friends whose bond survived distance, silence, and time. Years passed. Daniel grew into a young man and eventually became a history teacher. Every autumn, he brought his students to the old station and shared the story of Henry and Thomas. He always ended with the same words: "Life becomes busy, but never let time steal the people who matter most." One autumn evening, after the last visitors had left, Daniel noticed an elderly traveler sitting alone on a wooden bench near the tracks. The man smiled warmly and said, "I knew Thomas Walker many years ago. He often spoke about a friend named Henry. He always believed Henry would one day forgive himself." Daniel listened quietly as the stranger shared stories that no letter had ever mentioned. How Thomas had proudly carried Henry's old pocket watch, how he spoke of Willow Creek wherever he went, and how he never blamed his friend for the years of silence. Before boarding the evening train, the old traveler handed Daniel a small photograph. It showed Henry and Thomas standing side by side beside a steam locomotive, both smiling with hope for the future. On the back of the photograph, Thomas had written, "Some friendships don't end when people say goodbye. They live on in every story we choose to tell." The train slowly disappeared into the distance, its whistle echoing across the golden fields. Daniel placed the photograph beside the silver pocket watch in the exhibition. Many years. Every autumn, as the leaves turned gold and the old train rolled through Willow Creek, the Carter family gathered beside the railway tracks. They would remove their hats, smile toward the horizon, and remember two ordinary men whose extraordinary friendship had inspired an entire town. And so, Henry Carter and Thomas Walker were never forgotten. Their letters became more than ink on paper. They became a reminder that true friendship is one of life's greatest treasures, that forgiveness heals even the oldest regrets, and that love, loyalty, and memories can outlast time itself.